Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to Popternative. This, of course, is the talk show and podcast where we have digital discussions in the worlds of TV, film, news, sports, music, pop culture, lifestyle, everything really depending on the guest. Talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On social media, you know me as PD Beats. And we're speaking to a filmmaker. We're talking about his feature film called Downeast. Joe Raffa is with us. Joe, welcome to Popternative, man.
Hey, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's pretty interesting, and you could say it a little bit with your film as well. I feel like it's the same with music. I feel like there's a lot of genre bending going on in pop culture these days. We're not sure if one thing is just a crime drama. We're not sure if one thing is just a thriller or a horror. They're all kind of combining together. What do you think about that kind of trend in the entertainment industry, Joe?
I think it's amazing. You know, we're not trying to fit things into boxes anymore, right? We're really just exploring the best stories we can tell, right? We're writing the best tracks we can write.
Absolutely.
And we're not worried about, can we compartmentalize this or can we monetize that? And, we're in the create your own content generation where content is king. And I just think it's really freeing and it's exciting. And, we're going to emotionally affect people in a better way.
It's interesting because, throughout your career, you're kind of behind the camera. You're doing the filmmaking stuff. You're writing, you're producing, you're doing all that stuff. And you're seeing a lot of people kind of wear many hats. And a lot of actors that are on camera are also going behind the camera now. Do you think you're seeing that trend as well? Because do you see the interest of kind of actors you work with? Like they really want to kind of test the waters and work behind the camera too? Because I feel like there's a rush behind where you get to kind of see everything, right? Like the DPs and everything. Like it's a different experience.
Oh yeah, for sure. You definitely see people start out, on this path of acting, and they realize, I don't know who said it exactly, but it's a great quote. They'd rather be the painter than the paint, to a certain extent, right? You want to get your hands in there and really be able to affect the story the way you want to affect the story, to tell a personal story through a certain lens. And I think it's great. I think if you can wear multiple different hats throughout your career, it's only going to make you stronger across the board, right? You're going to be able to empathize with people who are doing certain jobs, or be able to relate to people on a certain level, communicate with them on a certain level. It's all really good. Really good stuff.
We're going to get to the film, I promise, but you're bringing up some good points and I have follow-up questions. I mean, wearing many hats is huge, but sometimes people kind of have a hard time to do so because you have to kind of get used to situations and get comfortable with the certain situations you're not used to kind of doing, right? Like the different kind of lanes that you're not used to kind of stepping into. For you and your experience, Joe, when you had to kind of test the waters and get out of your comfort zone a little bit with different kinds of things, what did you kind of do or learn in that regards?
Yeah, I think it's important to just rely on the team, rely on the people around you. You're only as good as your supporting cast, right? And the people you surround yourself with. So it's important to understand that nobody knows everything. And you have to trust the people around you and understand that they've been doing this job longer than you. If you're a writer director specifically, when you're on set with people that do 5, 6, 7 features in a year, right? Your costume designer is on feature number 8 that year. Your production designer is on feature number 5. You do one feature every 2, 3 years if you're lucky. So a lot of these people have more experience than you, and you just have to rely on that and really embrace it.
So we can finally talk. Let's talk about your film now. Because we were riffing. There was some good kind of back and forth with the industries. People love that stuff. Your movie, sir, that you guys are putting together. I mean, it's exciting times. I mean, you make this movie. People are going to be able to see it. Talk a little bit what we can expect from Downeast, and tell us a little bit of kind of what were kind of some of the inspirations in terms of the style of movies you kind of took for this project, Joe.
Sure. Yeah. So Downeast is this crime thriller that explores this seedy underground Maine that we don't really often see in film. And it's when this woman, Emma Maddox, returns back to the town of Oldport, and she starts to uncover this web of lies surrounding her brother's murder 7 years ago. And that puts our main character, Tommy, a lobster boat fisherman, on a collision course with the criminal element in the town. Greg Finley, who's the lead actor in the film, is phenomenal. He came to us with the idea. And a lot of times when you're collaborating with people, you want to make sure you have the same creative DNA.
Yeah.
And for me and Greg and producers Ed Stevens and Corey Pike, I know we all really enjoyed that, throwback film noirs of the past. In a lot of ways, this film feels like a modern day On the Waterfront. But you
Mm,
really let the story take you, and to go back to the point where we're not trying to fit things into boxes and we're really bending the genre. We really relied on each other to let the story uncover itself.
absolutely.
And we just knew we didn't want to make a
Yeah.
typical good guy meets bad guy, everything's okay in the end. We wanted to explore moral ambiguity. We wanted to really question decision making across the board for all our characters, and it was a very healthy partnership, and I'm really excited about it.
It's interesting you mentioned that though, because you know there's a lot of movies that are crime dramas. There's a lot of movies about organized. There's a lot, right? You kind of mentioned that. Do you kind of go? You obviously have kind of things in mind that need to be kind of put in the story. But I'm just curious from the filmmaker's point of view. Does that ever kind of come into play? Like as soon as you're kind of writing or like producing something where you're like, okay, how could we make this a little bit different than everything else that's out there? Like, is that kind of something that comes into play a lot sooner than we think, Joe?
I think so, for sure. And I think sometimes it's subconscious, but I'm a big believer in just putting as much of yourself into the project because, we're all individuals. We're
Yeah.
all different human beings. And as long as you're putting your heart and soul into that project, regardless of whether you think it's done before or not, it's going to be unique because it comes from you.
Mhm.
So for Downeast, we really wanted to hone in and focus on the love story at the center. And I loved love stories of the past, or that are almost like anti-love stories, right?
Yeah,
The
for sure.
Casablancas, where two people couldn't be together. Blue Valentine, I think, is an absolute masterpiece.
Great film.
So we really explored like the love story of Down East, and I think we brought something new and interesting to the table that we haven't seen before, and it just became part of our own personal experiences that we're throwing into the
when you're
film.
when you're talking about the two, like the love story that can't be, the one that comes to mind, it's a comedy, is 500 Days of Summer.
Oh yeah,
that
terrific.
just that just
That's
comes to
great.
mind right away when you say that. It's
Yeah.
interesting too because we're we're seeing a lot of films, and I think Marriage Story was one of these films with Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson that it was always that style, like the dialogue focused movies. I think I've always been there, but I think they're kind of getting more attention lately. And it seems like dialogue is really driving a lot now. A lot of what people say can be scary. What they can say can make you think about what's next in this crime drama. That's interesting. How important is it to one, have effective dialogue and focus when you're writing something or producing something that the dialogue is center of attention? And two, what are some of your methods when it comes to making sure the dialogue is impactful on the script, Joe?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to again trusting your actors, right? And you as a writer create this story, and you feel like you're alone with these characters, and you have specific voices in your head. And I was lucky again to have Greg and Ed and Corey to develop the script with.
Yes.
But once you write that script and you give it to the actor, you see what these actors are able to do with the material and how they're able to elevate it, and it's really special. So when we casted Dylan Silver to play Emma, she just brought this element to it that I just didn't even envision before. And I think it's always just to leave the space there, to not get caught into thinking about a character in one specific way.
Mhm.
So when an actor does bring themselves to the role, you truly embrace it, and it just helps the story.
Absolutely. It's interesting because this is a feature film, but a lot of filmmakers, to kind of get their foot in the door and kind of start, they do a lot of short films and web series. That's a big part of it. From your perspective as a filmmaker, is it safe to say that that's still kind of the way to go if people want to kind of make a film or they want to make a feature film? Do you recommend kind of starting and writing a short or making a short? Like, is that still kind of the go-to, Joe? Because a lot of things are changing.
Yeah, I think you have to.
Yeah.
We this generation, if you want your opportunity, you have to create your opportunity, right? That's kind of the what we were born into now. And I think it's great. I just think it's important to remember that, even though we're in this create your content generation, oftentimes, first time filmmakers or young filmmakers, you're going to create content and it's not going to achieve the level of success you thought it would, right? It might not be a reflection of who you are as an artist yet, because it's not easy, to make shorts, to make web series, to make independent features, right? So just be prepared to put your heart and soul into something and feel like you failed and having to do it all over again. It's something that happened to me, and I self sabotaged myself for a while because the first couple projects I did like that, didn't get into the festival that I wanted it to get into, right? It didn't get on the streaming platform that I wanted it to get into. So for a while, I was afraid to put myself out there again. I think it's essential that you do it. And I think it's essential that you do it again if you feel like you failed or that you can do better.
What do you think about writing, like people that want to be like a screenwriter, about the sample aspect of it? Because you know how some people like make things, like they write things and they want to make it, but then a lot of people kind of write things to show what they can kind of do as a sample, right? And give it to someone, be like,
Yeah.
this is what I could do. What do you kind of think about that? Should we be making films that we want to make, or should we, or like, is the sample make sense in some regard? It might be a little bit of a difficult one to answer, but do you know what I mean by that? Because there's the sample writing, and then there's the, okay, I want to write this, I'm passionate, and I do want to make it as well.
Yeah, yeah, and I think they can be the same thing, right? I think when you write a sample, put as much as yourself into it. I remember I wrote a feature that I really wanted to make about 7 years ago, and I was sending it to a bunch of people, and finally one of my friends read it, and he's like, "Hey, I have some, startup financing if you want to, get the ball rolling." And I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh my God!" I was so incredibly grateful. Angel Anthony Marrero, and we never were able to get the rest of the financing. So he's like, "Oh, turn it into a web series." And then I came up with a different idea for a web series to start from scratch that he agreed to do. And then one thing led to another, and that series got me hired to write for APS Films, who produced Downeast. And when I step back and I look at it, I'm like, wow, one thing led to another, which led to another, which led to another. And now I'm here. And it's all because I was writing a sample feature film of something that I was passionate about and I really wanted to make. And that
Absolutely.
film never got made, but through that, I've made a digital series. I wrote and directed 2 features. I helped write and produce a documentary that I'm really proud of, and it's all because you put the work in, and I had the right support, from the right people, which was very, very fortunate.
The obvious answer to this question is you hope people enjoy it and you hope people kind of recommend it and they like the ride. But diving
Mhm.
into it a little bit more, Joe, when people get to watch Down East, what exactly do you hope they get from this film?
I just hope they can relate to a character on the screen
Yep.
and sit back and say, you know what, I felt that way too once.
Hmm.
I think the film, deals with a lot of tough questions, about our decision making and how the past can sometimes feel like a trap. And I hope that people watch the film, identify with something out of it, and I think film, is a shared experience, right? When we can all share experience together, that's how we grow as individuals and as a community. So I just hope people can relate to it.
Absolutely. Joe, thank you so much for coming on Pop Turner for a little bit, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, Peter. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So they're going to be able to see Down East soon.
Yes, it's going to premiere at the Garden State Film Festival, which was virtual online. Downeast premieres March 27th, which is a Saturday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time.
Amazing. It has it hit you that it's gonna be it's gonna be out there soon? Like that's crazy.
Not yet. We just released the trailer a couple days ago, and everybody's real thrilled about the trailer. So it's been very nice. I feel like we're off to a good start, and it's always nerve wracking to put yourself out there, but I'm very confident in the film, and I'm really proud of the people and all the hard work that went into it. So
Amazing. And where can people follow you on social media to keep up to date with everything?
I'm most active on Instagram
Yep.
at Joe Raffa. But it's, if you don't mind seeing a bunch of pictures of my kid and my dog, it's kind of it for me.
Absolutely. Well, this has been Popternative. YouTube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Popternative.com for more content from pop culture, sports, lifestyle, music as well. Be sure to catch Down East when it's out, end of March, March 26th. Screenwritten by Joe Raffa. Until next time, this is Joe Raffa and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.